Welcome. This is how to choose a bike as fast as humanly possible. Body style. I'm going to divide all bikes into 2+1 major categories: road, mountain, and oddballs. Within each of these, there are subcategories. First, mountain. These are the most common types of bike today for their high versatility. Take them off-road, in the grass, on the paved streets, they'll work just about anywhere. Mountain bikes almost always have flat handlebars, called flat bars, for increased maneuverability when turning. Note that some might have a slight kink upwards, but this would still be considered a flat bar. Mountain bikes have large, knobby tires that are great for grip in grass, dirt, and other terrain. A subcategory of mountain bikes is gravel bikes. These are like road bikes but with larger, usually knobby tires. So imagine a mountain bike but with drop bars. They offer a happy medium between full mountain bike and full road bike. E-bikes usually fall under mountain bikes too. They're bikes but with an electric motor and battery strapped to it. So the bottom line for mountain bikes is the big downfall of speed. Mountain bikes are built for climbing and off-roading and not maximum speed. Second category is road. Road bikes are built for maximum speed on roads and other smooth paved surfaces, and that's about it. They have drop handlebars called drop bars, which curve downwards when the rider needs extra aerodynamics. Road bikes have skinny tires with minimal tread patterns for maximum grip on smooth, dry surfaces, and have the least rolling resistance. Road bikes have the rider in an aggressive stance, hunch over for less drag at high speed. The subcategory of road bikes are hybrid bikes. These are like road bikes but with a more relaxed stance and flat handlebars. So imagine a road bike but with flat handlebars. They're like a happy medium between full road bike and full mountain bike. Third category is the oddballs. This is everything else that doesn't fit into either road or mountain. You should probably not buy one of these unless you have a very specific need for one. Cruisers. They're like hybrid bikes but with handlebars that curve towards the rider. BMX bikes for cool tricks. Triathlon or cyclocross bikes for professionals and competition. Or fixed gear or single speed bikes, which only have one set speed and nothing else. Here's a handy chart I made that shows all the categories of bike body styles. Frame type. The frame on a bike is the metal part that links everything together. There are many materials and shapes your frame can be made out of, each with distinct advantages and disadvantages. Let's start with frame materials. Steel. It's the most basic frame material. It's cheap and easy to manufacture, but it's very heavy and prone to rust if the paint is damaged. Note that chromoly is a type of steel, and is heavy and still can rust. Aluminum. This is a light and strong but relatively inexpensive frame material. Aluminum frames are much lighter than steel but also more expensive. There are some aluminum subcategories that offer increasingly light options. 7005 aluminum is heavy but strong. 6061 aluminum is lighter than 7005 and very popular for mid-range aluminum frames. Alpha or A1 aluminum is a very high performance aluminum. It's the most expensive of the three but extremely lightweight and strong. Titanium. It's a middle point between steel and aluminum. Titanium frames today are pretty rare. It's about in the middle in terms of strength and weight, but it's very corrosion resistant. And finally, carbon fiber. This is the highest end frame material. It's the gold standard of frames. It's super light and very strong, but it's extremely expensive. It's reserved for only the highest end bikes. Now let's move to frame shape and geometry. Standard frames have a flat top tube that is perpendicular to the ground. These are most common for men's bikes. Women's specific design or WSD frames have a top tube that slopes or cuts downwards. These are the most common for women's bikes. Note that the two categories are very loose guidelines. There's lots of variation among manufacturers, and there's nothing stopping you from riding a bike with geometry from the opposite gender. Heck, I ride a WSD Dulce Elite. Features. Let's start with mountain and gravel bike features. The biggest feature to look out for is suspension. Suspension makes the ride smoother but weighs more and might cost you performance and speed. The three categories of suspension are rigid, hardtail, and full suspension. Rigid bikes offer no suspension and none of the advantages and disadvantages that come with it. These are common on gravel bikes. Hardtails have shocks in the front to dampen light bumps and drops, but they lack a spring in the back. Full suspension bikes offer shocks in the front and within the frame. They'll have the most smooth ride but will also be the heaviest. Another feature of mountain bikes is tubeless tires. Traditional tires with tubes can pop if punctured. Tubeless tires won't pop or go flat, but they're more expensive and much harder to fit. Next, features with road and hybrid bikes. There aren't a whole lot of features to discuss, but a big one is shifter and brake style. Entry-level road bikes will have separated brake levers and a shifting mechanism. These are the cheapest option but less intuitive and slower to operate since you need to physically move your hand away from the hoods to somewhere else. The most common shifters of this type are down tube shifters, stem shifters, and twist shifters. Mid-range and high-end road bikes will have dual action levers that act as both your braking and shifting lever. Simply pull the lever toward you to brake and move it to the side to shift up or down. This is much faster to operate but is more expensive. Brakes. One of the most important components on a bike. You need it to function reliably every time and be strong enough to stop in an emergency. There are several types of brake systems today. Most rely on a brake pad creating friction on your rim surface. Caliper brakes. These are common on road bikes for their low weight and efficient design. V-brakes, typically found on cheaper mountain bikes. Cantilever brakes. These are not usually found anymore on bikes, but they look like this. And finally, disc brakes. These offer the best braking power and reliability in wet conditions. They're generally the best option. Components, groupset, and gears. This is the most technical part of your bike to understand, but it is important to know. The components of your bike, for the most part, dictate the performance and price of your bike. Two main competitors in the bike components industry are Shimano and SRAM. Generally, there's no right choice between either one. They both offer solid choices at all tiers. But what does matter is purchasing a bike with components at the right tier, also called groupset. Groupset refers to what tier your shifters, derailleurs, and other minor components are. The higher, the better. Your bike's groupset also determines how many gears you'll have. The most important figure when looking at the number of gears is the amount of cogs in the rear. The amount of chain rings in the front doesn't matter as much since you're changing them less often. Here are the groupsets for mountain bikes and road bikes. For Shimano, Tourney is the lowest end, and for SRAM it's X3, X4, or X5 for mountain, and Apex for road. These are found on the most inexpensive bikes and support 6 or 7 rear cogs. Now, inexpensive does not equal bad. All of these, if tuned properly, can have solid, reliable shifting, but the downfall is weight and speed. These are the heaviest of the entire lineup and may take longer to shift into gear. They might even hesitate to shift, click a few times, and then go into gear. Mid-range groupsets are a solid choice for more serious riders that don't necessarily need the highest end. For Shimano, these are in the range of Alivio for mountain and Tiagra for road, and for SRAM it's X7 for mountain and Rival for road. These will offer better performance, faster shifting, lower weight, and 8 to 10 rear cogs. Enthusiast level groupsets are for the true enthusiasts, but not necessarily the professionals. For Shimano, this is their SLX and 105 level, and for SRAM is their GX Eagle or X1 and Force. These offer just as many gears as their highest end, 12, with the only true difference being weight. And for those who just can't afford to leave any performance on the table, we have the professional level groupsets. This would be Shimano's XTR, Ultegra, and Dura Ace, and SRAM's X01, XX1 Eagle, and Red. These offer the best performance possible, the lowest weights, and perfect crisp shifts every single time. Of course, these are also the most expensive, with some groupsets easily totaling over $1,000. New or used. I always recommend buyers who just want a bike that works to buy used. Unless you're going for the absolute highest or absolute lowest end, you can almost always buy a decent comparable bike used. For example, I bought my Specialized Dulce Elite for under $300, which was about $1,300 new in 2010. Regularly check Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, or eBay, and always make sure to be safe when meeting in person. For those who absolutely must have something high-end or something cheap but new, it is always an option. For the low end, you can get solid new bikes from big box stores for about $200, and for the high end, you can shop in local bike shops or online to find whatever your heart desires. Okay, that's all for today's fastest humanly possible episode. Bye!